looks like people are still updating their status. I guess we'll give them another minute or so and then we can get going.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Hey, actually, I had some questions about like Velero. Like maybe I don't know if you can help me on this call. So I was there on the community channel and like nobody had like I didn't get like proper response. Can you hear me?
Yeah, so if what you might be able to do is because we don't actually have a lot of discussion topics listed now anyway, so if you go to the HackMD, add your topic to the discussion topics, and then we can address that after we go through status.
Okay.
I think we're actually probably ready to get started. Shubham, you want to go ahead and start up on status updates?
Yeah. So I think I updated the extension of volume policy design from some feedback that I got from Daniel. I think he actually acted today morning. So I just need another approval from another reviewer, and I'll put together, start put together, start and put together an implementation PR for this week.
Okay, and if so you have one act you just knew. I can look at that after the meeting
Yeah.
as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you, Shubham, for working on this.
And then Daniel,
Yeah, there's a design for persisting the restore info JSON. It's similar to the backup volume info and for the downstream and CLI to display more details about how the volume is handled during restore.
okay.
Previously, I was thinking we can leverage backup volume info, but turns out it won't work. There's a reason and some of the details. If you're interested, please take a look. Otherwise, I think probably it will be merged very soon, like tomorrow or around the end of this week, so that we can, merge the code for implementation before FC.
Okay, sounds good. And for myself, I've been working on the design PR for the multi-threaded backup performance enhancements. And
so that's for within one backup or handling multiple backup CRs.
within one backup. Yeah, it's within one backup. Although the way I'm kind of envisioning it, the worker pool that I'm creating for doing the backup item blocks, I think we can reuse that when we implement the multiple backups at once. So for example, if you have a worker pool, of say 10 workers that are handling those backup blocks, once we work out the details of how to avoid conflicts between multiple backups, I think that same worker pool then could be used. So if you're only doing one backup, all 10 of those or 20, however many you're
but there's a setting, but probably we don't need to use it because there's a setting in the controller manager to the max concurrent worker.
Oh, well, right. Well, see that's the max concurrent backups. But since if each backup has multiple items within the backup, my thinking is, if you have, say you're configured for 20 items at once, but then you say I want to run three backups at once, we may not want to run 20 times 3. So the way right now in the design, and when I get the PR posted, you can kind of see how it is, and we can discuss it. Is that the workers that handle the backup item are going to be workers. What's the worker pool that will create? At the time we start the controller, and then you're right. There's a separate setting for how many reconciles happen at once. But those reconciles, when you're going through the backup and you get the item collector output, you get the list of items, and then you create these blocks of items. Those then get passed to the worker pool. And those can be shared among different backups. So there's two different settings here. There's going to be how many reconciles happen at once, and then there's going to be when you pass these items to the workers to handle, if you're doing 10 or 20 items at once, those workers, in theory, could be shared between the different backups.
The initial thinking is I don't think that should share the same worker pool, but we can.
I've gone back and forth on that as well, and it's one of these things is that depending on how you handle worker pools. One way of doing it, which I initially thought about, was you create these short-lived worker pools where you basically you only create the workers when you're doing a backup. For this backup, you use them and then you delete them. The persistent workers that last between backups. One advantage of that I think Sean pointed out to me was we could have a feature enhancement later where we can identify priority of backups. So for example, it might be that the items for certain backups are higher priority than others, and if you had the persistent pools, you could build that into the logic there. That would be a feature enhancement. We wouldn't be doing any of that first now, but when we're looking at the design for this, though, I think that the basic determining factor as to whether we want to share these workers between the backups or have a separate pool of workers for each backup is going to determine whether we want to start these workers up at controller start time, or whether we want to create the go routines during the backup processing and then remove them as soon as we're done. So that is another option that can be done that way. And then the other aspect there that we can figure out is from a user point of view, is it easier for the user to say, oh, I want to do 3 backups at once, and each backup can have 5 or 10 or whatever threads, or is it easier for the user to think about scaling their based on the size of their cluster, the size of their Velero pod? I only want to back up a maximum of 10 items at once, regardless of how many backups are running at the same time. So those two design decisions would affect the way it's configured as to what those meanings mean. I mean, the number of concurrent backups, scaling for the reconcile is obvious. That's going to be the same either way. You're going to run 2 backups at once or 1 backup at once. Where it becomes different is in the case where, again, are these worker threads unique to this backup? And so then it's the total number of items you can be backing up at once is going to be the number of backups times the number of workers per backup, or is that number of workers a number that's shared? So both of those options would work. I know when I was kind of going through this, I kind of considered both of those. Now I may be thinking that I should mention that in the other approach, the kind of at the end of the design, saying that this was something that I initially had thought, but then now thinking I'm not going to do. But then we can kind of discuss the options there when I get the PR. I do expect to post the PR this week, probably Thursday or so. My best guess right now.
Okay. Yeah. By the way, this Thursday and Friday are Chinese public holiday, so we won't be available.
Sure. So basically, first thing next week, we should be able to. There'll be something there that we can start reviewing and discussing.
All right.
And we can talk in more detail again next week's community meeting as well.
Yeah. Sure. Thanks.
Okay. Does anybody else have any status updates? If not, we can move on to discussion topics. So there aren't any on the agenda, but if anyone has any topics or questions, now would be a good time to bring that up. Okay, so I think that's it. We'll finish early today, unless there is another question or topic someone wants to bring up, and then we can, and we've got plenty of time to do that. I guess that'll be it for today's meeting. Shubham, I will look over your volume policy PR and hopefully be able to give that a second approval today, so then you can get going on the implementation.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining. And I think Matthias is listed as host, so you can stop the recording.